What's up, guys? So I have something very awesome today. This is going to be the Druid Ball Lightning build. So basically it plays just like a Ball Lightning Sorceress, and we will actually have the ability, if we want to actually scale some lightning in here. But the whole point of this video is mainly to show off the brand new unique, the Dolmen Stone, in combination with the Metamorphic Stone. These are the two things that are kind of required for the build to be up and running, and it's a really fun build. And if you are interested in the Ball Lightning playstyle, this could be something to look forward to in Season 3. And the reason why I say in Season 3 is because the Ball Lightning Sorceress will more than likely get some heavy nerfs. And on top of that, this was something that was brand new and got introduced, but it is not seeing that much play. And as a Diablo partner, I've been talking about some feedback for the next season, and more than likely we will probably see a buff to a lot of the underused skills to refresh the meta. And this is one of the things that I think is really cool, and a lot of people have tried it, and honestly, at the end of the day, is this going to be the best AOZ pushing build? Absolutely not. But it is still a fun build, and you can start prepping for, of course, Season 3 with this video, so you have the knowledge once Season 3 drops to maybe, if you want to, consider making this build if you haven't tried it out yet, or if you prefer the Ball Lightning playstyle. Well, this is probably going to be more likely the most similar thing. So you do need certain things to get this up and running, and it is still a okay build if you still want to do level 100 content, Hell Tides, or any of like the Vampiric areas, the Bloodlures. You can do all of it with this build. However, again, if you're interested in doing the highest tier of content, Druid just simply isn't really that great. I'll be honest. There's just so many better options in the current state of the game, as Shred Druid would arguably be considered the meta. It's not easy to play for most people, and the requirements are quite high, so it's going to be more so of a fun off-meta build, but more likely in Season 3 it will receive some sort of a buff to its stats. So let's go ahead and go over the skills first off, then we'll go over the gear and all of the other things like Paragon, Vampiric Powers. So starting off, the most important things are going to be, of course, the skills. So what are we playing for these skills? So we're going to be playing Boulder. That is our main source of damage, and the other skill, you can run whatever you want to. I actually recommend, if you don't want to play Wind Shear for the movement speed, you can actually play any transformation skill, because any of the transformation skills will actually give you extra resource cost reduction. When you transform, you'll basically get to double up on it because you're going to go back to human form. The important thing also with this build is mainly going to be a human build. I am aware that there is a shred build where you can convert some stuff and then you can play a shred boulder build. I wanted this one to be a human build, so keep that in mind as well. However, if you want to, that's going to be for a separate video because it requires so many different swaps, and I wanted to go ahead and drop this build guide for you guys as is something I wanted to play. I played it on stream. A lot of you guys were like, yo, can you drop the build for this? And so this is for you guys, but it still is like an okay build. Again, you could definitely clear out, you know, Hell Tides and stuff with that. It's a really fun build. Anyways, so we are running Boulder for a source of damage, but you need to activate Hurricane first. That's the important thing. So activate Hurricane first and then just spam Boulder, and you'll just start deleting content. The rest of the stuff is mainly just used for resources. So again, Wind Shear or any transformation skill, and then we run Earth and Bulwark, and then again Hurricane. It doesn't deal damage, by the way. This is only to activate our other proc effects of other things. And then we're running Petrify, and then we are also running Blood Howl to give us extra resource as well as giving us extra damage reduction, because there's a thing that kind of persists, and you could spam Blood Howl because of the skill tree. If you get a kill, it reduces the cooldown over 1 second every kill, so it's actually quite fast, and that's how we continuously spam it. So now that we went over the skills and kind of how they work, so pretty much it goes down to, oh, okay, you see an elite pack or something dangerous, throw on your Earth and Bulwark, throw on Petrify, and if you want to run Flicker Step, which I'm running in the gameplay, and then I swap off it just so I can give you guys that variety, you could actually spam Petrify very, very often. Now, there is a thing, because this does stun the enemies, sometimes you don't get that lucky pull in with the Malignant Ring, the Arida's Inexorable Will, but it still is a pretty good thing to have. But if you do get that pull, because sometimes it'll just pull him regardless, sometimes it will keep him in that state. I don't know what causes it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if it does pull in all the enemies, you just Flicker Step through all of them and basically do that twice, because remember, this pulls in twice when you have the ring. Sometimes it's kind of random, it's RNG, but if you get that, you could just spam it on basically almost every elite pack that you come through, so it's quite nice for that. But it's just when things go wrong, or if you're doing any AOZ pushing, which you technically can do with this build, although I wouldn't recommend most players do it, as it kind of becomes quite tough. But if your glyph is high enough, You could basically play any build in the game. But Petrify, yeah, it's much better in the AOZ areas if you want to spam this and you want to run Flicker Step. But yeah, as far as the Spirit Boons, let's go over that now. So for Deer, we are running Wariness, so extra damage reductions pretty much on every Druid build. For Eagle, we are running increased crit strike chance and then extra crit strike damage. You get about 90% crit with this build if you happen to have pretty good rolls, but easily 70 plus even with really bad rolls on your pieces of gear, that being basically the rings. And then on top of that, if you want to run Iron Feather, that's fine. And then for Wolf, we're running Energize, so more resource. In fact, our key passive is just dedicated for extra resource. And then we're running Snake, the calm before the storm, so we can actually spam our abilities much more often, which is great. And then for our equipment, if you don't happen to have some of these, there are things down below in the like how it works and optional steps over here. There are some things that I mentioned, but if you don't happen to have Holocron Crest, don't worry, the build still runs. The only thing that is required though is the Dolmen Stone and the aspect of Metamorphic Stone. Other than that, a lot of the stuff you can kind of get it as you go along. So anyways, with the Holocron Crest being best in slot, you can also get a helmet with just max life, extra armor, and any sort of all resistance or plus to spirit. And then for the chest piece, we're running Symbiotic Aspect over here, and these need to be basically in these slots because of the way that the game is designed. These are not going to be like the offensive aspects that you normally would run and say let's say the gloves. You want Quicksand to get extra bonus damage to crowd control. But yeah, Symbiotic is going to make it so the Nature's Fury activates. Basically, your skill is going to be up more often with this. And then you're just looking for like max life, armor, damage reduction, just all the defensive stats on the armor for your chest piece. And then Aspect of Quicksand, that's going to make your Earth skill slow enemies. We want that because not only is that better for survivability, but also it's great because you're going to be able to proc your extra bonus damage against crowd controlled targets, which is something that's important with the build in the Paragon Board. And then we're just looking for crit strike chance, attack speed, and the most important thing is lucky hit, chance to restore primary resource. That's the most important stat over there. And then, yeah, again, Aspect of Quicksand, and then Willpower or any other like offensive stat is fine. Extra crit is good as well. But as far as the pants over here, this is where we get plus ranks to Boulder. Even though we make Boulder considered a core skill, we actually get our bonuses off of the pants. So looking for max life, total armor, any defensive stats, all resist. For our aspect over here, Disobedience, and then we are running the Ballistic Aspect over in the boot category, and so that's going to make it so when we have Fortify, we get plus 2 ranks to our Earth skills, so we get an extra bonus 10. It's basically like 10% of your base damage, which is better than a more multiplicative damage because it's what everything starts scaling off of. So plus 2 ranks to that, it's awesome. But if you want to run Flicker Step, that's totally great as well. So just looking for movement speed, spirit cost reduction, and you just got a bunch of resistances if you want to on your boots, and then plus movement speed. And then for our offensive aspect in our one-handed, you can run a two-handed if you want to run Metamorphic Stone as well, which will increase your damage by quite a bit, but you lose out on the primary resource. But damage to crowd control, willpower, all stats, those are all great. And then for our amulet, Dolmen Stone, which is going to give us plus ranks. It's going to, for our RAS skills, resource generation, is a fantastic amulet. It actually gives you life too, which is great. And then for one of our rings, we're running the aspect of natural balance. So this one is going to make it so when we cast a storm skill, which is going to be hurricane and any of the lightning skills, it's going to be able to grant our earth skills extra crit damage. And then when we cast a earth skill, the crit strike chance of our storm skills is increased. That doesn't really matter too much because our storm skills don't actually deal good damage. And then for our stat priority, what we're looking for is basically max life as well as crit strike chance, and then you get some damage in any category, really. You can get close over here. And then you can run another ring that's basically the same as this and then throw in another offensive aspect, which could be anything from like the Edge Masters to anything gives you extra utility, that's fine too. But I like this as well. It's kind of up to you what you want to play. This gives you ultimate cooldown reduction, which normally doesn't roll on rings. So this allows you to spam your Petrify much more often if you want to. And on top of that, it can pull in the enemies. The first one though, since it like kind of stuns all of them, it sometimes doesn't always pull those ones in. You'll see in the gameplay. Sometimes it pulls them in, sometimes it doesn't. But nonetheless, it gives you some extra like damage too, because it gives you like +% willpower, which is okay. But if you want to run another ring, that's totally a-okay. And then for our other aspect over here, we're running Crash Stone. So this one, the most important thing on your offhand is getting that lucky hit chance to restore primary resource, also getting spirit cost reduction. If you don't happen to have these lucky hit chance to restore primary resource, you can instead run a Tibalt's. But really, I like running the one-handers just for that reason, and you get like extra spirit cost reduction on this as well. And then for the gems, we're just running Emerald, Ruby, and then Skulls. If you need extra resistances, by all means throw in whatever you need for the jewelry slots. For the Vampiric Powers, you can run a Curse Touch, Prey on the Weak, Anticipation, Sanguine Brace, Ravenous. These are all great options, but if you want to run Resilience, swap out Ravenous or maybe Anticipation, that's fine too. So as far as like how the build works, I already kind of mentioned it, but I just always keep this for people that just happen to be browsing on the Mobalytics website, which will also be included. So basically all you do is you go ahead, you can start off with Bloodhowl, Hurricane, Boulder 2 or 3 times, and then Petrify, use Bulwark when it's up, and then Wind Shear or anything else for the ability to transform, because that's part of the skill tree. Speaking of the skill tree, let's go into the skill tree over here. So as far as the skill tree goes, at the very beginning, it doesn't really matter. I actually do recommend running this. You could put one more point into this to give you extra movement speed, or you could be a Werebear. I actually think that this is great as well. So if you want to go into a Werebear, this is okay, because you could maybe have a chance to knock down the enemies. But for the most part, this is what I like. If you want to put points into Wild Impulses, that's totally fine too, because you have a pretty good amount of resource with this build. But I always try to make my builds to the point where people don't have to use a generator for them, because spamming generator is boring. We actually don't use a core skill at all, even though Boulder counts as a core skill. Then we're going to get Earth and Bulwark over here, and then we're going to get the Bloodhowl. We want the one where it generates spirit and reducing the cooldown, just extra sort of damage over here, and this is considered defensive skill. Same with this. And then over here, we don't need any pet stuff because we're not a pet build, so we are running this for our lightning. Now, if you want to make it more of a lightning build, you can run Bad Omen for the chance for the lightning bolt to come down that also deals damage, and then when you deal any lightning damage, you can immobilize. Since we run the thing that guarantees a slow anyways, but if you want to build up your stagger bar, make it more of a ball lightning build, technically you can combo, and you could just take out some points in terms of damage, because we get a lot of damage nodes over here. You could take that out, put 1 point into each one of these, and have a chance to immobilize if you want to. And then it's basically like a ball lightning build because you have all these other things going on. But I think arguably it's much better to go for this. So as far as Boulder goes, that's our main source of damage, so Boulder. And then we're going to be putting into Natural Boulder. That was the instantly 20% crit strike chance, and this is how you get like 90% crit on the build, relatively min-max, but on average anywhere from like 70 should be pretty strong, because you're going to be getting extra fortification when you do crit with your Earth skill. So that's how we build it up real easy, that and Sanguine Brace. And then this one over here, this was something that it can be used to actually slow down. There's a thing where like one of the things can proc off of Landslide. This is something that I was kind of messing around with before, but honestly you can run a lot of different things in here. If you do want to do poison, there is like a poison variation, but I think I'm going to save that for another video. I'd rather put it into Wild Impulses, but that was something that I wanted to leave it there so I would remember that there is another build with this. So there is a lot of playstyles with Druid that kind of like bleed into basically completely different builds. But over here, running Petrify, and then we're also running Defiance, just so we can get Natural Disaster, more damage to vulnerable enemies, and then Storm Skills deal a little bit more damage, but that doesn't really matter too much. And then we're running Quick Shift and Heightened Senses, because whenever we go into Werewolf or Werebear, which we are constantly spamming our Bloodhowl, because that's just extra free resource, and technically gives us extra life, but because we can go into that, it's just free extra damage reduction. But if you feel like you have good damage, then you could spec into getting even more damage, like I did with Wild Impulses over here, so that is another option. But for our key passive, Nature's Fury is excellent over here, so it just gives us free skills. Now, what's the point of these free skills? Well, most of the other stuff isn't really too usable. It's kind of hard to kind of run most of the things. This one, it can give you like basically guaranteed crit strikes, but you can get like 90% crit when you're min-max and Restore Spirit. This is much better because it just keeps your spirit consistently, where this is kind of spiky here in terms of if it's actually working. Now, in terms of the Paragon Board, let's go over that really quick. I'm just going to link this down below on the Mobalytics website because it's always easier to go over that. But for our starter board, we get Exploit, and then we move up to where we put in the Tears of Blood with Ancestral Guidance over here. Let me go move this down so you guys can see it a little bit better. So Tears of Blood, and then on the left, we're running Constricting Tendrils and Territorial. The order can matter a little bit, but our second one is actually Ancestral Guidance, Tears of Blood, and then we go into Earthen Devastation with Spirit. And then we go into the fourth one with Constricting Tendrils and Territorial. And then we get Inner Beast with Human. It's like the first ever human Druid build. Because I've been checking out a lot of Druid builds. All of them are pretty much going to be Shred, as well as Pulverize. Those are like the most popular ones. And then there's like the Tornado Wolf one, which everyone plays in like Season 0. But yeah, this is not, by all means, it's meant to be the best build, at least for Season 2. Maybe in Season 3, it might be one of the better builds. It could be one of the best builds in the game, depending on how much they actually buff the Dolmen Stone. Because I thought it was a really cool build, and I haven't really seen anyone play play like a dolmen stone build for the most part when it first came out. A lot of people were testing out and they were like, oh, feels underwhelming. So more than likely we'll have to wait and see what they do with the buffs coming in season 3. But kind of a fun build, and I want to update you guys and give you guys the build guide that you guys wanted. That's gonna go ahead and wrap up things. So the build guide will be again pinned down below. But if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.